Hi then, the Story Ninja is back with another story. So come and join us for story time. Come on, sit a little bit closer. Just going to ask you to do one little thing. Let's shake those wiggles out. Once we've settled, let's close our eyes. Inhale and exhale. And inhale, exhale. And one last time for good measure. And exhale. Well, I'm feeling quite relaxed. I'm hoping you do too. Are you ready for our story? Everything lovely and hushed around you? Yes? Are you ready to listen? Right. I found our story, as you can guess, somewhere online. But I'll share where I found it. But the story is King of the Pumpkins. And it's written by Chris Rose. So let's start. Deep in the middle of the woods, said my mother, is the place where the King of the Pumpkins lives. But pumpkins live in fields, don't they? Not in forests, I said to my mother. Oh, she wouldn't listen to me. I'm telling you, she said, the king of the pumpkins lives in the middle of the woods. And the woods that he lives in is the woods that is right next to our house. It's the woods you can see out of our window. Over there. She pointed with her hand to the woods that were, in fact, just outside the window behind our house. He doesn't live in the field like other pumpkins, she said, because he's not an ordinary pumpkin. He's the king pumpkin. I shut up and decided to believe her, like you do when you're a child. Firstly, I knew that it wasn't worth arguing with my mother. She always won. Secondly, when you're just a child, you always believe what grown-ups tell you, most times. Um, Never mind how silly it may seem. Like Father Christmas and the Tooth Fairy, the Man in the Moon, things like that. Children always believe it, even though it is a bit silly. You know what I mean, eh? So still I decided to go and find the King of the Pumpkins, partly because I was bored, nothing else to do, partly because I was curious. And also, of course, because I wanted to know if my mother really was talking nonsense or not. Mother often talked nonsense. I have to say that. Sorry. There was the time she told me that the man in the moon was made of cheese, or the moon was made of cheese, something like that. I knew that it was nonsense. I mean, really. Then there were all the stories she told me, stories about frogs, princesses, princes, and glass slippers, stories about donkeys and unicorns, gnomes and elves, magic mirrors and magic cooking pots. Hmm, Stories about why the stars are exactly the way they are. Why the river that runs through our town has the name that it has. Stories about where the sun comes from and why the sky is so far away. And why the elephant has a long trunk. Some of these stories I think might have been true. Just might. I was never sure. And it was difficult to find out. So this time, though, with the story about the King of the Pumpkins, it was going to be easy. Really easy to find out if she was telling the truth or not. Some people used to call my mother a witch, but I knew she wasn't one. Just a bit strange, perhaps. And she used to talk nonsense a lot. Perhaps it was also because of the black cat we had. People say that witches always have black cats, and we had a black cat. But Mog wasn't a witch's cat. He was just a regular black cat. Mog could talk, though. I have to say that. Perhaps that isn't so regular in a cat. What do you think? Now that I'm thinking about it, maybe not. Anyway, as I was telling you about the time I went to find the King of the Pumpkins, I set off with Mog, the cat, into the woods to look for the King of the Pumpkins. Even though we'd lived in that house near the woods all my life, I'd never gone into the middle of the woods. This was the first time. I was glad I had Mog with me. I was a bit scared, even though I didn't really think that the King of the Pumpkins actually lived there. "Watch out for the wolves," said Mog. "Oh, yes, and the grandmothers too," I choked. "Let's not leave the path," said Mog. When people said my mother was a witch, I told them that witches don't have children. Yeah, they replied. "That's true, but you look more like an elf than a regular child." I looked in the mirror to see if I looked like an elf or not. I think I looked like a regular child, but you can never really tell. "Do you think he's real?" I asked Mog. "Who? The wolf?" "He certainly is," replied Mog. "No, not the wolf. I know the wolf is real," I said to Mog. Sometimes I could hear the wolf howling at night. I knew he was real. "No, not the wolf. The King of the Pumpkins. Do you think he's real?" "Do you?" "I don't know," said the cat. "Guess we'll just have to find out." So we walked on into the forest. The trees got taller and taller and even taller. The path got narrower and narrower and even narrower. "What does he do then, this King of the Pumpkins?" asked Mog. "I don't really know," I said. "I guess he just kind of his head of the pumpkin, boss pumpkin, decides on pumpkin rules and pumpkin laws, I think, and punishes people who break them." "Oh, I see," said Mog. He was quiet for a bit and then said, "What kind of things are pumpkin rules then? Um, how big can you grow? What color you have to be? Stuff like that." "You're making this up, aren't you?" asked Mog. "Yeah," I said. Eventually we got to the middle of the forest. At least I think it was the middle of the forest, but it's difficult to say exactly. There was a clearing, a big space where there were absolutely no trees. In the middle of the clearing was the King of the Pumpkins. At least I think it was the King of the Pumpkins. It looked like a man at first. He was quite tall and had legs and arms made from sticks. He was wearing an old black coat. His head was a pumpkin. His head was the biggest pumpkin I had ever seen. Me and Mog went up close to him. He didn't say a thing. "Is that it?" I asked Mog. "I guess so," said Mog. "Disappointing, though." "Do you think he's the real King of the Pumpkins?" I asked. "Who knows?" replied the cat. As we walked back along the path out of the forest, I started to think about what was real and what was not. Could things that were made up also be true? What was the difference between story and history? One is real and the other isn't. Is that it, perhaps? What do you think? What about all those other things that Mother talks about? Do you think they're real? I asked Mog. I'm not sure, said Mog. Those stories she tells sometimes about why the night is black and the day is blue, about golden eggs and girls with golden hair, about why people have 10 fingers, 10 toes, 2 feet, 2 hands, and 2 eyes. Sometimes I think she might be just a little crazy, and sometimes I think she might be absolutely right. I knew what Margaret meant. I felt the same way sometimes. Perhaps the stories aren't true, but what they mean is. So, just thinking, I love stories so much. And yes, sometimes those stories are very, very true, and I could learn a whole lot from them. Sometimes they may not be true, but at the same time, I could be learning plenty lessons through those stories. So, for the love of stories, let's keep on sharing stories and come back and listen to another one. Come and join our community story circle. So see you next time, and bye for now.